Hello, you guys. Welcome back to The Priestess Perspective. It is me, Hot High Priestess Sarah, and welcome to the Priestess fam, you guys. I am so excited for today's episode. If this episode found you, it is no coincidence whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or now we are available on YouTube for the video version. I just want to say I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much to everyone who has rated the podcast 5 stars, given the YouTube a subscribe, a thumbs up. You have no idea how much it helps. If you have not already, please rate the Priestess Perspective 5 stars. It helps more than you could ever know. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that Spirit is telling me a lot of us are collectively dealing with, collectively undergoing, which is this pursuit of passion, this pursuit of happiness. Let's jump in. Today's episode is going to be a banger, and today we're going to be talking about how it is never too late to start. Because you know what? Spirit told me collectively that a lot of us are either currently or will very soon be undergoing a pursuit of passion, a pursuit of happiness. And you know what? I don't know about you guys, but timing, aging, getting older has always been like a forefront thought. I always think, oh my God, I'm too old. I'm too, I feel like I'm getting older even though I'm only 23. I think my entire life, at least, I have felt like I've constantly felt rushed. I feel like I didn't even start to truly live life until I was like 18 in college. I grew up in a household where I lacked a lot of opportunity growing up. I grew up as an immigrant. I was poor. My family didn't have a lot of resources when we came to America. And I felt that the second I left my home situation and I went to college, I was finally free. I finally had resources because I was taking out loans and I was like, oh my God. And I was living on campus and all these things. And it really only felt like I was truly living and I was truly happy when I left New York. And because of that, I felt like I was making up for lost time. I felt like I was rushing life, honestly, and I had to make up for all the time that I had missed out on life. And I honestly attribute that to the fact that I created a 7-figure business by the time I was 22. I grew to millions of followers so fast. I operate on this frequency of speed. And that is something I talk about often, is that I operate under the frequency of speed. Okay? I do not believe your manifestations have to take a long ass time to come into fruition. I believe that you can get whatever it is you want very, very quickly if you are in the frequency of speed. And I always have been. Let me know, DM me on Instagram right now if you want to see a podcast episode about how to tap into the frequency of speed, because I'm telling you, there is a reason that I manifested a 7-figure business by the time I was 22, that I lost 10 pounds in 1 month over the summer, how I have completely transformed my entire life in honestly just 2 years. I gained millions of followers on social media in a year. And it is no coincidence. It is because I operate on the frequency of speed. And I would love to talk about that because if you choose that for your life, you can manifest things really. Anyways, I operate on the frequency of speed. And because I'm constantly operating on this frequency of speed, I feel like I'm running light years. I was talking to my friend Jenny, and in the past I had told her, I feel like I live 5 years of life in every single year that goes by because I accomplished so much in a single year. And especially the past 2 years, I have traveled to so many places, so many new countries, lived in so many places. I completely up-leveled my life, transform my life to a degree that it is unrecognizable at this point compared to where I come from and, my upbringing. And yeah, I feel like because I'm constantly on the run, so to speak, and I'm constantly living life at, high levels of speed, time is this construct where it's like, I'm constantly thinking it's too late. I need to run. And there have been so many things that I've wanted to pursue. And in the back of my head, I have this limiting belief that a lot of us, I think, deal with. And DM me on Instagram if you deal with this limiting belief feeling like it's too late. And I used to business coach, and a lot of my clients at the time would have this limiting belief where they feel, oh, it's too late. I'm too old, right? I'm too old to start a TikTok. It's too late for me to start a TikTok. The niche is too saturated, whatever, right? And this is a limiting belief I want us to completely eradicate by the end of this podcast, because it is never too late to start. In fact, it's never too late because the right time is the one that always finds you. It's never too late because if it was meant to be sooner, it would have been. And I think this is a concept that when I fully began embracing, my entire life changed. I recently read this book called Carrie Soto is Back. It's a 6-star read for me. It's my favorite freaking book ever. Highly, highly recommend. It's like one of those books that you like cannot put down, but you also don't ever want it to end. So highly recommend you guys read it if you're interested in like one of those page turner books. But this book follows a woman who is obviously fictional, but 37 years old, comes out of retirement to get back into tennis and reclaim her title for world champion or whatever it is. And I think I've always dealt with this fear of aging and this fear of getting older, and it's actually really debilitating. And I notice a commonality amongst a lot of successful people is we fear time running too fast or getting older, right? It is something transparently that I still deal with, absolutely. But it is something that I've learned to tackle because I've noticed and recognized that my life only gets better with age. I become wiser, hotter, more confident. I become more inclined to take action towards my dreams and my goals. And yeah, I want to talk about this concept that, it really is never too late, because recently, amongst a lot of my friends, amongst my own self, I've noticed a lot of people taking on new passions, new projects, new opportunities, and launching phases are finding people because truthfully, honestly, what I realized is up until you're 18, you really don't have obviously you have a lot of autonomy, but for the most part, a lot of what forms you to that point is your upbringing, is your parents, it is the environment you grew up in, etc., right? Up until the point that you're 18. Then you go off to college, right? I went to college till I was like 22, and I'm now 23, and I'm starting to feel callings and passions to start new things. And part of me is like, I wish I started this sooner. But the truth is, it's okay to start things at the age, post-grad or in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, so on and so forth, because of a few reasons that we'll discuss today. But specifically, if you are in your 20s, even your 30s, this is the prime time for you to start the new thing, to take action, to take the risk, to do the damn thing that you feel called to do. You are by no means too late, because you are choosing this because you choose this. Not because your parents put you into dance lessons, not because Uncle Tom told you to go take classes at this place, not because your school forced you to do something. You are choosing to do this thing because your soul is calling you to do the thing. And in your 20s, it's the time where you finally have the autonomy, you finally have the resources and the opportunity and freedom to actually go after the thing that you want to do, to actually take on the thing that you want to pursue. And so you aren't by any means too late. In fact, the timing is quite perfect. If you guys don't know, I read Carrie Soto is Back, which is a book about tennis. Knew nothing about tennis when I read this book, absolutely nothing, but I actually ended up falling in love with tennis after reading this book. And I recently went to my first tennis lesson a couple days ago, and I'm just so in love with tennis. And part of me in my head was saying like, shoot, I kind of wish I did tennis as a child or when I was younger. I wish I was like really pro at tennis. What if I would have been like a pro athlete? What if I would have been like a pro tennis player? Like there are all these other lives I could have lived if I started so many things at a sooner age. And I almost felt like upset, mad, angry that I didn't have that opportunity growing up. And then it hit me. If I was a professional tennis player right now, I probably wouldn't be sitting here recording the Priestess Perspective for you all at this point. I probably wouldn't be someone who works for herself. You know, I probably wouldn't be living the exact life that I live today, which is my dream life. I honestly wouldn't have my life any other way. I love my life so much, but I wouldn't be living the life I live today unless everything went exactly as it did. And there are so many other potential avenues our lives could have taken, but they wouldn't necessarily lead us to where we are today. And I think that brings me a lot of peace of mind knowing like you are exactly where you are meant to be. Throughout life, you are going to get callings to do certain things. Like for me, it was to pick up tennis at 23 years old, whatever. And those callings will always find you when the divine timing hits, when the timing is finally divinely right. The calling finds you when it was meant to find you. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. You feel the calling because the timing is right. For example, I felt a calling randomly to start playing pickleball. And through that, I met Pickleball Boy. And through Pickleball Boy, I met close friends in LA. And like my entire life changed because of him, honestly, in a lot of ways. And so on and so forth. Always follow the calling. A calling finds you because your soul is speaking to you. That I wholeheartedly believe in. But my point being is that the calling always finds you when you're ready and when the timing is right. And so for me, while I know I am obviously older, and so for me to start playing tennis, for example, I'm going to use tennis as an example here. I'm going to sound a little obsessed with tennis this episode. But for me, for example, yes, I'm starting tennis at 23 years old. I might not end up going pro because of the age that I'm starting at. Although honestly, I think anyone can do anything. I think there is the possibility to be exceptional at something, even if you do start tennis at 23 or what have you, right? There are so many singers and actors who take up these things at a later age and become world famous, you know? So never say never. And one of the things I teach my Rich Bitch Bootcamp students, which by the way, if you want to join Rich Bitch Bootcamp, Manifest Magic, or get my Love Letter Method meditation, which is now out, by the way, to manifest your specific person really fast. That is all going to be linked down below for you. And use code BESTIE for 30% off for my podcast listeners only. But as I was saying, something I tell a lot of my Rich Bitch Bootcamp students is find a person, and I teach them that if someone has done something, then you can do it too. One of the fastest ways to eradicate a limiting belief is to find someone who has done the thing that you think is out of touch, out of reach, and to literally instill the belief in your head that if they could do it, you could do it too. I owe a lot of the success in my life to finding expanders, to following people on Instagram or TikTok who live the life that I live today. And at one point I looked at their lives and I was like, you know what, that looks incredible. And if they could do it, I could do it too. And using them as inspiration and guidance rather than viewing them as something away from me, viewing them as something that is on the path that I'm walking down. But anyway, I think anyone can do anything. But at the same time, I realized that this found me when it was meant to find me. That maybe tennis wasn't supposed to be my career, but maybe it was supposed to be a way that I make friends, stay fit, find a passion that fuels my soul. Maybe it's just serving as a way for me to get outside more. And I don't know exactly the reason tennis became a calling for me. I will find out, because you always do, as I found out why pickleball was a calling for me. But it found me at this time because the time is now right. And something I was thinking about as well was how the time will still pass. Let me say that again. The time will still pass. I'm 23 now, but at one point I'm gonna be 25 and I'm gonna be 26, and the time will still pass. I could either be someone who never tried tennis, or I could be someone who is a lot better at tennis than she was the day before or 3 years before. And at every stage of life, your only goal should really be to outbeat yourself, to be better than you were yesterday. At every point of life, I want you to remember that the time will still pass. I remember when I was on my weight loss journey, and it was like a year ago at this point. I remember, starting it, and I was like, dude, it's going to take so long to lose the weight. Little did I know it doesn't have to. But in my head, that was like a limiting belief I had. And then I realized, well, the time is going to pass anyway. I could either make progress over the next few months, the next year, towards my dream body, or have made no progress at all. And I would rather try, even if it does take time, than to not try at all. I would rather try now than not try at all. And you know what I realized is that there is no sooner than today. That's it. There is no sooner than today. This is the soonest chance you'll ever get at this point. So take the chance now rather than question, oh, what if I started a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Well, there is no sooner than today. And that is just a realization that really did it for me. There is no sooner than today. I wanted to start tennis, and I'm like, wow, I wish I started this when I was younger, but there is no sooner than today. You might be wanting to start on TikTok, and you might be like, well, it's already, 3 years into the app, 4 years into the app, but there is no sooner than today. You either start today. You know what? The time is going to pass anyway. A year from now, you could be at 1 million followers, or a year from now, you could have just never tried and you will never know. And so it's important to remember that the time will pass anyway, that at one point you are going to be 5 years older, 10 years older, and it's extremely important that when you feel that calling, you do not allow a limiting belief like that to be the reason why the time passed and nothing changed, or the time passed and you never took the chance. And so I do want you to really remember that if you are listening to this. Now, if you are listening to this episode, I also want you to DM me on Instagram and let me know. Also, if you're enjoying this episode, please rate it 5 stars, like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. If you are an OG, you know what's up. But DM me and tell me, what is that thing that you have been wanting to start, that you want to do, that maybe you feel like you're too old, or it's too late, or I wish I started sooner. Let me know in the DMs. But something I also wanted to, emphasize is that one of the most magnificent things that I was ever told is everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. Serena Williams and I have the same 24 hours in a day. What is she doing in her 24 hours compared to what I'm doing? Right? And so remembering everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, and that everyone started something at 0, just like you are, is also really important. When people find me and they see the life I live today, they often forget that I started at $0 in the bank, 0 supporters, 0 followers. I was also exactly where you are at 0, but I'm not anymore. But at every stage that you will go through, I was at that stage too. I was at that stage where you doubt yourself. I was at that stage where I was having panic attacks and freaking out and not knowing what I'm doing. Every stage that you are going to go through, the person who is already living your dream life has been through. And that's important to remember, because sometimes we look at people who live our dream lives and we forget that they were at 0 too, right? And obviously some people have certain privileges, or maybe some people have a little bit of a head start. But there's something about if you're feeling called to do something, then you probably have some kind of head start as well. And I want you to recognize what that head start is. I think everyone has their strengths, has their weaknesses, But so long as you go all in on your strengths, then you will always win. And those strengths are going to be the only thing that determines where you end up. So do not focus on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths, okay? Some people are privileged, but those privileged people, if they are focused on only the things that are their weaknesses or holding them back, then they are losing too. The biggest privilege is recognizing what your strengths are and having a positive mindset, to be completely honest. And if you can adopt a positive mindset and have confidence in yourself, then you are more privileged than a lot of people in the world. That is the fastest way to attract luck and privilege into your life. The next thing I want to touch on is that mindset and confidence is everything. Literally, just as I was saying, is mindset and confidence is everything. You can quite literally do anything with the right mindset and the right confidence. And you might be starting later. You might be starting older. You might be starting at a time you think isn't right, which is a limiting belief and isn't necessarily true. But if you have a positive mindset and if you have an A game of a mindset and confidence, you will win every time. You will beat the people who started younger but had a worse mindset. And I know that for a fact because as a business owner, it's actually funny because I feel like it might actually benefit people to start a business potentially later in life. Maybe, they have more resources, more connections, what have you. But I had the mindset and confidence that got me to where I am in a very short amount of time and at a very young age. And so, by the way, I teach all of this in Rich Bitch Bootcamp, which you should totally join down below. I believe if you check out the link down below, you guys get it for like $400 off for only $888 or something, which is crazy. And I will link that down below for you. Rich Bitch Bootcamp is actually the most life-changing program I've ever come out with. It is for the people who want exceptionalism in their lives, who are ready to manifest an extreme amount of wealth and are ready to completely upgrade their lives and become successful business owners, or, number one at something and really, really take their life to the next level, be known around the world, make an impact around the world. So if that sounds like you, definitely check out Rich Bitch Bootcamp or my free Money Magnet Masterclass as well. Another thing I wanted to touch on as well is I was talking to my friend Jenny, and she said, we were talking about the book Outliers, which is one of my favorite books. And in Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell talks about how to become a master at something or an expert at something, you need to put in 10,000 hours. Now, anyone can put in the 10,000 hours into anything if you make the time and you make the room for it. But not everyone needs to be a master, and not everyone would benefit from being a master, nor is that maybe the thing that you actually need or want to do. For example, I actually think my life would benefit more from just dabbling in tennis and being relatively good at it than being an expert at tennis. I think being, dabbling in tennis, maybe volleyball and all these other sports would benefit me more, because it would introduce me to new friends, it would keep it fun, etc., etc. And yeah, maybe I'm not going to put in 10,000 hours into tennis, but putting in 100 hours into tennis will make a vast difference in my life. And so instead of thinking, okay, how can I put 10,000 hours into starting my career or into this passion that I want to take up, I want you to ask yourself, how can I put in 1 hour, 10 hours? And you can be an entirely different person. You can actually get really good at something in 10 hours of practicing something. For example, cooking. 10 hours of cooking classes, I feel like you'd get a recipe down. You'd perfect a recipe, or what have you. You're learning a language. 100 hours of learning a language could potentially lead to you having conversational skills that you can then use if you ever travel to that country. And knowing that it could literally only take 10 to 100 hours of investing your time into something to make radical difference in your life is something that I want you to remember, right? So don't think, how am I going to put in a gazillion hours, but how can I put in 2, 3 hours, 10 hours, 100 hours. And remember, you are putting in 40 hours of work into your work week. So how can you find 100 hours in the year to invest in a passion of yours? All right, and the final thing I want to talk about is how the ego is going to be the thing that stops you. At the end of the day, I think the number one thing that is going to stop anyone is going to be the ego, and it's not external circumstances, forces, like so many people are saying. I want you to recognize that at the end of the day, it is going to be your own ego that stops you. Even thinking that you are too old or that age is a factor is usually your ego playing into it. Is it really age? Is it really your circumstances? Or is it that you're too afraid? Is it that you don't want to be seen and you are self-sabotaging an experience for yourself? And I want you to really ask yourself, in what ways might I be self-sabotaging? Because you can quite literally do anything when you remove the ego, when you remove what other people think. Was it scary for me to post on TikTok for the first time? Absolutely. Is it scary posting this on YouTube and on Spotify, my podcast, and being so vulnerable and open about my life? Absolutely. Am I going to do it anyway? Yes, because this is my soul's purpose, and my soul's purpose is more important than my ego or what my family or friends might think. All right. And so just because it's scary doesn't mean it's the wrong. And the truth is, so much of what we desire in life, so much of what the best decisions in life that we are ever going to make lie on the other side of a very, very scary feeling, of a very maybe embarrassing feeling. Like, honestly, my TikToks were cringe. They're still cringe, and I do them anyway. I post them anyway. Yeah, it's a little embarrassing to post how to make him obsessed on my TikTok, on my Instagram, when guys I like are following my Instagram. But you know what? I do it anyway because this is it. You know what I mean? And that's all right. Listen, my phone is on 5%, so I'm going to wrap this episode up by saying that at the end of the day, if this podcast episode found you, then whatever you are feeling called to do at this time, this is literally the universe reiterating to you through me as a messenger to do it, to go after it. The time is now and the time is right. And I want you to remember that. I want you to choose the path of least resistance. That's another thing I actually want to do a whole podcast episode about, but it's a topic I constantly touch on, whether it's manifest using pleasure or what have you. Choose the path of least resistance. I come on the podcast looking like absolute crap half the time, where I come on my TikToks and my hair looks a mess, whatever. Because I choose the path of least resistance, I'm going to do anything rather than nothing, right? I'm going to make small incremental steps. I'm going to post a video where I look like crap rather than not post at all. I'm going to learn one word of the language I'm trying to learn rather than none at all, even if I butcher it, right? And so at the end of the day, focus on taking the path of least resistance, making small steps, doing anything rather than nothing. And this is the one thing I'm telling you, especially in your career, especially in entrepreneurship, and this is something I reiterate in Rich Bitch Bootcamp as well, that is so incredibly important, is the number one thing that is going to stop your success is your own ego, is your self-sabotage, is your mindset, and it's also going to be that you are striving for perfection, okay? Do not focus on perfectionism. Focus on just doing, just moving, just taking action, period. And I will leave it at that. I am so proud of you if you listened to the end. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Go ahead and DM me if this episode resonated with you. Please rate the Barrista's Perspective 5 stars if you enjoyed, and if you want to see an episode next Sunday. And go ahead and subscribe to us on the YouTube, and I love you. Check out Manifest Magic, Rich Bitch Bootcamp, or my Love Letter Method guided meditation down below. I will link that all for you, but I want to send you a big hug and let you know I'm so proud of you. Have the best week ever. Bye.